So as you know from a previous video, on Thursday, I had sold a put at 677, and even though it did close above that 677 on that Thursday, it did drop after hours. And because of this drop right here after hours, I was assigned those shares at 677. So since I was assigned those shares, I now have 100 shares. So what do? Well, Friday, it did move up and I was able to sell a call. Let's take a look at what strike I picked, why I picked it, and did those shares get taken away? And if so, how much did I make? Hello, my friends, this is Legend. So, as I stated, on Thursday, I was able to sell that put, and I had a put strike at 677, and that day it did close just above 677, but then fell after hours, which then became profitable for the buyer, so therefore I was assigned those shares. And since I was assigned those shares, come Friday morning, I then owned 100 shares of SPY at a purchase price of $6.77 per share. And here we are looking at that day chart. And this is that candle that did come down and drop below that $6.77, which ended up assigning me those shares. And honestly, couldn't have been a better problem to have, right? Because I was assigned those shares at that 677, which is about right here. And the next day, being Friday, we had a nice move up. Now, who knew this thing was going to move from the previous close of 677.62 all the way up to a 690.62? Goodness, right? Who knew that? But since we don't know and we don't have that crystal ball, we have to play the trade at the moment. So let's take a look at that 5-minute chart as I want to show you what I used, how I picked my strike, what I was looking for, how much I made, and are those shares going to get taken away? All right, so here we are on that 5-minute chart. And before market open, what I would normally do is I draw my lines in, right? I'm drawing in this high point right here, which is the high from the day before. In this case, this would be the high of Thursday. And then I want to do the low. Now, it's not necessarily the low just during the trading day, but also the low in the after hours and pre-market going into the following day, which would be Friday trading coming up. And as you can see, we did get as low as about 670.89. Now, since I own those shares at 677, which is way up here, and this stock had dropped all the way down to 670.89, it's looking like I'm not going to be able to sell a call that day. But keep in mind, that is after hours and that is pre-market following. You never know what is going to happen until market open. But I draw my lines in, and that's what I use. So fast forwarding from that Thursday up to the start of Friday, you can see I'm now looking at it, and instead of the night before where we are down below and sitting at 670, we're looking at it in the morning and we are starting to come up close to this 683.69, which was our high from the previous day. Now you can see in the pre-market, it wasn't quite there and it was getting there close, and then it was getting pushed back down, and then it would go up and got pushed back down a little bit. Kind of looked like it was trying to find a little bit of a top from that previous day. But I'm going to keep with my lines and see what happens. Well, zooming in a little bit here, this is the opening of Friday. And when it opened, it just kind of took off, right? It was sitting at that 681.86. And it went as high just within that 5 minutes of 684.47. So this thing was just riding on up. Then the next 5 minutes, it was moving up again. And since it had broke this upper part of yesterday and it was still moving up, And by the time I checked this one out, it was sitting at around this 684, 685 area right here. So what I did is I put in an order to sell a call at 686. And of course, expiring that day. Now you can see we actually started getting a little bit of red candle. Did not know if it was going to go through and get filled or not, but I stuck with my 686. And I also was asking $2 for the premium at that 686. And we can take a look at my order right here. And this is the one that I did sell. This is the call that I sold, 686, February the 6th. So that's a day trade right there. As you can see, it was filled at a price of $2.01. So that's per share, and that's one contract for 100 shares. That's $201 that gets put directly into my account no matter what. But eventually you can see it did end up going on up. Here it got as high as 686.50. And I believe that is about the time that I got my order filled, because it got filled and then it started coming back down. And look at this. It came down and it tested that previous high and it used it as a springboard, right? Because then it started moving up and it just kept on going up. Look at this. It ended up going as high as 692.31. Now, since I had this 686 strike right here, and I got paid $2 for it, right? So as you can see, at the end of the day, that 686 strike was now worth $4.52. So that $2 that I got paid, that same contract is now at the end of the day worth $4.52. So since it is definitely worth more than I got paid, it's definitely going to get taken, right? Those shares are going to get taken away at 686. Now, with the price at 690, yes, I did leave about $4 on the table. But unless you can tell the future, you play the market with what it gives you. Now, yes, I could have tried to get a 688 or 689, but I would have got definitely lower premium at the time that I was trying to sell that call. And of course, when it did get assigned, and if it came back down and it hung out right here, I would look like a genius, right? It went up, got paid my premium, and then came back down. I get to keep my shares and get to find out what it's going to do on Monday. But instead, it kept on going. So those shares will be taken away. But how much money did I actually end up making on just that single play? Well, if we look at my order form here, remember on Thursday I had the 677 that paid me $2.25, and that one got assigned. Now, of course, I did have other puts here. I had a 110 and a 140. Neither one of those got assigned, but I did earn $140 and $110 for 2 days before the one that I actually did get assigned that I earned $2.25 on. But just keeping with that assignment for those 100 shares, I earned $2.25 per share times 100 shares, that's $225. So let's enter that part in right here and keep track of it and find out how much I actually made from the assignment of that 677 to the sell at 686. So $2.25 times 100 shares, that's $225. Then on Friday, I actually was able to sell that call at a 686, also a day trade, and I earned $2.01. So that's plus 201. So far, I've earned $426 just in premium for those 2 days. And like I said, that's not counting the 110 and the 140, which would be a total of about $250 in additional money that earned in premium, which is also money that just went straight into my account. But that 225 and that 201 now shows me earning a premium of $426. So that's the premium I earned, but I sold my shares. Did I make money or did I lose money on the sale of those shares? Well, I had them at 677 and I sold them at 686. Well, if you subtract those two numbers, that's $9 times one contract times 100 shares. So $9 times 100, that's $900 for just the sale of those shares. So that 426 plus $900. So in those 2 days, I earned $1,326 in the premium and the price appreciation of getting assigned and selling SPY. And that's not too bad for 2 days. A very nice amount of money. So that should raise my account by a total of about $1,300 more. I don't know about you, but that's some good money. Now, what am I looking for on Monday? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in my lines. I'm going to draw it in at the top of whatever the high was for Friday, the aftermarket, and the pre-market of Monday. So whatever that high is, I am going to make that my upper limit. And then I'm going to move that bottom limit, which is way down here at 670, and it's going to get moved up to closer to around at 680, unless pre-market of Monday drops below that. Then that would be my new low. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if this thing on Monday just came back down? Then I'm able to sell a put again and maybe get assigned those shares and then sell them on the next pop-up. Because if you look at SPY right here, we're not really doing a whole lot, right? It did move down a good bit those last few days. But if you look at this, we've had some low days, right? And we've had some pretty nice up days. But honestly, it has just been very choppy, where it's going high and it's going low. But overall, it is somewhat staying within this range right here. And that is an awesome thing to make money on when you're selling calls and puts. And as I've said before, you do not want to sell a put on a stock or ETF that you do not want to own. Because yes, you can roll it and you can push it out, but at some point you could get to the point where you have to buy those shares. So in my logic, I do not worry about getting put the shares because it's SPY. And if we look at that 1-year chart, it's moving up. And we look at that 5-year chart and it's moving up. So even though if I'm assigned those shares and we get a drop and it comes all the way back down here, yes, that would be a little painful to have to hold. But the charts and the history tells me that this wants to continue to move up over time. So worst case scenario is it's going to take a little bit of time for that stock to recover. And of course, that is my opinion. That is not guaranteed and definitely not financial advice. But using a stock like SPY, it kind of gives me a bit of a protection field because of that stock history that just continues to want to move up. That gives me a little bit more of an assurance that this one is going to continue moving up. And the chances of me losing buying a stock at a position and then it just fall completely out, in my mind, it's a little on the minimal side. Now, I could have to own those shares for a while. And yes, holding those shares is money that's just being held up. And I'm sure a lot of people would say, yes, but you could be using that money to make more money into something else that's moving at that time. And yes, you could. But again, that all means that you have to know the future. Because how do you know a stock is going to move up that next day? I have no idea. And anybody else who tries to tell you they know, I would be very leery of that. So for me, I'm playing the history of it. I'm playing the technicals and I am playing my ranges. And that is what I use to select my options on SPY. So making $1,100 on Friday or a little over $1,300 for Thursday and Friday, right? Whichever one you want to look at it as, that is some good money. And I'm so excited about that and cannot wait to do it again. Rinse and repeat. That's all I can say. So if you'd like to get notified when I make my trades, as I do post those into my Discord, so all my Discord members know when I make my trades, as I do drop those receipts right into my Discord for my members to see when I'm getting in, at what strike I've got in at, and I'm also letting them know options that I'm looking at, strikes that have not necessarily been filled yet, but that are open and what I'm looking at to get filled at. So if you'd like to get more information, see when I'm actually making those trades, come on over, join the Discord. The link will be in the descriptions and in the pinned comments below. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, legend out.